Good evening, everyone. How are you this evening? Awesome. Thank you. Love the excitement. My name's Shannon, and I'm a PhD student, and I've just submitted my thesis. Thank you. Just thought I'd get that in there. And I'm here to talk to you this evening about adult development and leadership in healthcare leaders. Quick story. Before I start, when I told my sister that I was going to do the comedy science program, she was absolutely amazed and somewhat aghast because she said, "Shannon, you're not funny." Thanks, Russell. So some people, when I tell them that I'm an adult development researcher, they think it's about strength and pain, or maybe your testicles dropping. But it's none of those things, no. So why am I so obsessed with adult development in healthcare leaders? I spent a good deal of my life as an ICU and emergency nurse. And yes, that does mean that I am very comfortable managing all your body parts. And also it gave me an inside view on leadership, both really good leadership and some not so good leadership. This is a photo of one of my ex-bosses. I like to call him Dr. Dummy Spit. He had a PhD in pretty huge dummy spits. In fact, after a session with him, you'd feel like you'd had a rather nasty shower. Pretty gross. But why is it interesting for you or important for you to have adult development in your healthcare? The reason is that things happen unexpectedly. And we all want leaders in healthcare who are able to deal with pretty hectic, unexpected things. And as it turns out, adult development really helps them to thrive in these sort of situations. Now, I've mentioned adult development a few times, and just to be sure that we're all on the same page, what I'm talking about in my research is the ability to see things from many different perspectives and to take many different points of view. We all know some people who have a real my way or the highway approach. Some leaders that just have one particular way of looking at things. Someone maybe a bit like this. Not a lot of alternative viewpoints here. A very black and white view on the world. Or maybe just white. Alternatively, there can be people who you may know or heard about who have a much better ability to see multiple points of view and can really take these on board and craft a way forward. In my research, I looked at 4 different stages of adult development. There's a total of 16. There was 4 stages in between. And I'd like to introduce you to this lovely older lady there. She's a grandmother, a mother of 8, happens to be my mother, Val, or as we affectionately like to call her, the Valinator. Very, very independent, still lives alone, 90 years old. And recently, my brother, who's number 6 of 8, by the way, favourite child, don't know how that happened, we took Mum out for lunch and we're sitting there looking over the water, and I said to Mum, "Isn't this wonderful? You've got your favourite child, your number 1 daughter, having a lovely lunch. Isn't this wonderful, Mum?" And Mum just turns to us and says, well, I couldn't pay for my own lunch, you know. And I thought, that's just one perspective, Mum. Thanks very much. Now, I want to reassure you that you're all adults and you're all developed, but maybe, just maybe, there might be room for improvement here and there. No? Okay, perfect. I know that certainly there can be room for improvement with myself in terms of the way I look at things at times. Now, people say to me a number of things when they hear about my research. They say, wow, that is so needed, generally in their own place of work. And they start to tell me all about it. Fascinating. Also, that must be so interesting. And yeah, absolutely it is. And you must be really nosy. And yeah, I am, but I like to think of it as curious. And I'm the sort of person that at a party, I'll be the one in the corner having real deep and meaningful with somebody so that when they leave the party, they feel like they've had a really cathartic session with their therapist. So what did my research look like? There were 17 participants, and this is double the number of kids in my family. Really experienced people, doctors and nurses in leadership positions throughout Australia. And we did 2 one-hour interviews with them and generated mountains of data. So much data that I actually started to dream about my participants. And this was one of my participants. Could I be so lucky? What we found was that of this potential 16 different stages of adult development, we found 5 represented in our sample. And we also found that at different stages, people demonstrated different behaviours and different ways of looking at things. I'm just going to briefly touch on one. And this was experiencing and dealing with conflict. What we found was that at earlier stages of development, leaders tended to avoid conflict. They tended to put things off. They didn't really want to have those difficult conversations. A bit like, you got a toothache, you know you've got to go to the dentist, but if your dentist is a 6'3" ex-rugby player with fingers like sausages, you sort of put off going to the dentist even more. Maybe that's just mine. Then experiencing and dealing with conflict in later stages of development, the leaders tended to be far more proactive in what they were doing. And it wasn't that they actually liked the conflict, it just meant that they realised they needed to deal with it, and they tended to be on the front foot. So, what could this research mean for you? 1, recognising that we can all continue to develop right throughout our lives. There's still hope for Peter Dunn. And also to know that for each of us, we can continue to look at things from different perspectives. And we are also working at developing some programs for our healthcare leaders specifically to help them in broadening their perspectives. And if that all happens, then that improves our whole health system. And for myself personally, if I can do all that, what that may mean is that I maybe, just maybe, can become #1 favourite child. Thank you very much, everyone. You've been awesome.